Welcome everyone to Dead Talk Live, and tonight we have a special guest. Dave Sheridan is with us, famously from Scary Movie. Dave, thank you for being with us. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
It is
Yeah,
our
this is awesome.
it is our pleasure. It is our pleasure to talk to you, get to talk about some stuff. And before we get started on your stuff, looking at your IMDb, you have a lot of stuff coming out. Out of all this stuff that is completed in post production, which project are you most excited about?
Hmm, that's hard to say. You know my IMDb probably better than me. So, um, uh, hmm, I really like. We're going to be screening um, a director's cut of Bloody Summer Camp at the New Jersey Horror Con, and that'll be
Nice.
like November 14th or something like that. So, I'm excited about that. That's a fun little thing. And then a movie that's out that I just saw like a review on is called Cold Blooded Killers,
Uh huh.
and I got an opportunity to play the main bad guy in that. And that's not a horror movie. That's more like a grindhouse shoot 'em up kind of Peck and Paul, Tarantino, post Tarantino grindhouse kind of thing,
Yeah.
roadhousey. But it was a fun role for me because I got to play the actual main villain, and then
Nice.
I played a main villain in is called Massacre Academy, which it's kind of tongue in cheek and comedic, but my character is the masked clown character that's really brutal, and that one is not a funny turn for me at all.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that's a lot of people ask me why I went into sort of the like ultra low budget horror. Well, one is it's also survival. You reach a certain age in the business, and if you're not in a certain category where there's offers being made, then there's very little money. So you might as well go and do what you want to do, or at least go to a place where you can have freedom to explore new opportunities of characters. And in the horror genre,
Yeah.
uh, it's enabled me not to just play. I'm not just the goofy deputy all the time now. I can move on to the the goofy neighbor, the goofy mayor. Like in Bloody Summer Camp, I'm a sheriff. So I moved up from a deputy to a sheriff, and I have been cast as a mayor in a couple of things as well. This movie called Shadow Marsh, that's
that
pretty cool, and I play the mayor in that one. So it's kind of funny how I'm moving my way up in the public service category. You know,
that's awesome. And you brought up the New Jersey Horror Festival. That's the one in Atlantic City, right?
yes, that'll be
I,
at the Showboat in Atlantic City. And I was just trying to think of one.
I'm gonna be
You
there.
know, when this will air, but I was trying to think of something upcoming that would be pertinent. I don't want
Yeah.
to tell people there. I'm doing Frightmare in the falls at Niagara Falls, but that's this weekend, Halloween weekend. We shoot. This isn't live, so when does
This
something
is
like this?
live, actually.
What? I didn't know it was live. I would have not worn this cold.
Yeah,
I
Dead
didn't put
Talk.
out it rained here yesterday, and it's so beautiful out today. And I mean, I like this clean weather. So my kids are home from school. This is really the quietest place I have is my backyard.
Yeah,
So
I hear you. I have three teenagers and a wife, and I'm stuck in a little corner of the house. I've been pushed away from everywhere else.
right.
But I look forward to meeting you at the New Jersey Horror Festival. We're going to be covering that, so that should be pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's the other reason I brought it up because I knew you were active over there in that area. So
And this is your movie is premiering on that Sunday at the end of the convention.
I think it's on Saturday, but I haven't seen the playlist on when it is. But yeah,
Okay, we're gonna have to definitely check it out. Now, did you always have sort of this comedic background?
yeah, all the time. In fact, yeah, since preschool, I was the class clown and the troublemaker and the kid in the corner. Like when I was coming up, and you're probably around the same age as me. They don't do it anymore, but I mean, I was like the last generation of the little dunce cap in the corner and the rulers, which were like, not 12-inch rulers, but yardsticks. You know what I'm saying? Yardsticks of
Yeah,
getting pounded on the table and getting spanked and stuff like that. And eventually, then you go to the principal's office. So, uh,
yeah.
yeah, I,
I was a class clown myself, so I totally hear you on that. Uh, so let's go back and talk about Scary Movie. That is obviously what you're very well known for. It was a very popular film, a horror spoof comedy. that spoofed Scream, The Usual Suspects, and you
Yep.
ended up being, the,
Kaiser Sosek.
Kaiser Sose in the end.
Yeah.
Tell us about that experience. How'd you get the role, and what'd you think of it after it was all said and done with?
Yeah. Also, the other movie was I Know What You Did Last Summer. Was
Yes.
like, the two mashups, and that's the one thing kind of separates. First of all, um, a lot of the spoofs that came after, and I mean, not just the scary movie versions, but all the other stuff. But ultimately, it really stayed true to at least those two movies, and it just kind of directly mashed them up. But the storyline, there was still a feasible storyline that you were
Yep.
following, and it didn't give away who the killer was,
No.
which we all know now. After 20, I hope there's not a spoiler alert for someone that the movie's been out for 20 years. But
That's yeah. Spoilers are expired.
yeah, so I think when you watch the film, there still is that kind of intrigue of, oh, I wonder who the killer is, as people get killed. So because no matter what, no matter how goofy a movie is, if you have a plot that is still holding something back of a mystery of a thriller, then you have something interesting there. And so I think that is, on top of it being really funny, that's sort of what holds that movie out more than all the other scary movies and stuff like that, and all the other spoofs. So that I knew that going into it, that was going to be cool. Like, okay, wait, this isn't a horror movie, but there is killings, and it is Ghostface. It's just another version of Ghostface, and I think it's pretty unique. In fact, the interesting thing about that is, so really quick, because you asked how I got involved with it, was I already was making films with the Weinstein Company, Miramax and Dimension, and so they were aware of me. And back then, I used to shoot a bunch of I shot a whole bunch of short films in like 1990, 1991 that ended up on VHS tapes and
Mm-hmm.
floating around. And one of the characters that was on there was a character named Chip, and I shot two short films with him. Chip is what turned into Doofy.
Gotcha.
So they called Chip and said, "Hey, that would be the perfect character, and Dave would, if you could play Chip as Doofy, that would be great." And so that's what I did, and I thought that was awesome because I didn't have any plans to make Chip into anything more than what it was.
Yeah.
But it's based on an amalgamation of like characters, like people I knew in my neighborhood growing up. I took three characters. Well, I call them characters, but they were characters in my neighborhood, but they were real people. And it was Bruce, Adam, and this guy named Tony Radio. And I sort of mixed them together and had this two short films about Chip, and they saw them and moved them into Doofy. But when I read the script and I saw that Doofy was going to also be the killer, I was like, this might be my only shot to get inside a mask and stab people. So I said, I'll do it if I get to play the killer. Because normally they would just put a stunt guy in there. But I convinced them, and I think it was rightfully so. I said, there's a lot of physical humor that this Ghostface is going to have, not knowing how to hide and just all the different double takes. And, it's hard to make a character with no face funny. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's all about the body movements and exaggerations of the neck and the head and stuff like that. So I had a lot of fun. I think it was equal amount of fun playing the killer in the movie.
So you were actually the one behind the mask. That was you.
Yeah, and I got to keep the masks. I have the real, the masks I wore, the robe I wore, the knife. So I
That's
have
good.
that.
I mean, you know how hard it is to actually walk away from a set with that kind of memorabilia?
Yeah, and then we actually did a digital scan, like a laser scan of my masks to make a mold, a reverse mold with like a 3D printer so that we have a mold now to do latex. And I've done some hand pours and hand painted, but I need to find a place to sort of, they're so popular I can't even keep up. Like when I came to Pennsylvania HorrorCon, I hand painted 10 and I sold them on the Friday right away in the first 2 hours. And then Saturday, the guy was like, do you have any more of those masks? I go, I sold out on Friday. He goes, why didn't you save some for Saturday? I go, that's not the way it works. When I pack something to sell, I sell it. It's not like I'm going 5 on. I don't know what's going to sell, what's not going to sell.
Exactly. First come, first serve. Now,
But ultimately, that's a lot of work for me to hand pour it and then hand paint them. So I'm looking for a place to maybe, do a mass run of them because they don't exist. My scary movie, Ghostface, even the hero mask, it's different than all the other screams. And if you go back and watch the movie, the first time you see me standing outside in a kind of Michael Myers way out by the tree where she reads the note, I know what you did last summer, and then she looks and I'm gone. That is closer to the real Scream mask. And that was the original sort of hand carving of what we were going to do. But then when I shot the scene with Carmen Electra, Keenan couldn't hear me. And I was doing the voice live. All that in the movie, most of that's all live, me recorded on set because I'm improvising and stuff. And so that's when they cut the mouth out and they did fabric. But when you cut the mouth out, it lost like the elongation of it and it
Yeah.
became more rounder. And plus, I tied it really tight because I didn't want it to flop around when I was moving. So that way, the microphone and the boom mic could hear what I was saying,
Yeah.
so that Keenan could hear it in his ears. And so it changed the shape of the mask by
But
doing that. But
yeah, it's not
cool,
very noticeable. I
huh?
mean, it's not noticeable.
It is a little bit. I have a rounder mouth than the other Scream ones because it's pulled and it loses it lost it. The moment you cut something, it was
Yeah.
like this, and you open it up, then it goes wider. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
but that's great because that's what makes it unique. And there's been guys trying to hand make those, but they haven't nailed it because they just don't have the actual mask. But I was able to laser copy it, so I actually have the original mask that is the absolute duplicate of it. And the
That
same thing with the tongue. So yeah.
that is so cool. In your opinion, how hard is it to pull off a successful horror spoof? Like, how did the
Okay.
Wayans do? I mean, obviously they did great. How was it working with them? What did they do to make that such a success?
Okay. So another case in point is we also did Haunted House and Haunted House 2.
Mm-hmm.
And about to do another one in a couple of weeks. We're going to shoot something in Atlanta. I can't give it away. The working title, though, I can tell that because I know it's going to change. It's called Boo. Is the
Okay.
working, and it's a really cool thing. It takes place on Halloween night. That's all I got to say about it. It's one night, but it's not a spoof. That one is an original idea, but it
Okay.
is. It's more like Jumanji and you know
As soon
Night of
as
the
as soon as you said Halloween night, I'm like, oh, they're gonna spoof Halloween, the movie, Michael Myers.
No, but there is aspects to that trick or treating, boogeyman trick or treating stuff, but it's not a Michael Myers directly spoof. But ultimately, though, you go back to like, how did they make Scary Movie so funny, or what's the secret of a horror spoof? The secret of any spoof, and what Keenan would always say is, you have to have the audience has to know what you're spoofing. They have to know the tropes and the sort of stereotypes and the cliches, and so that's why doing a film, making fun of a genre of film that's played out, or at least is so familiar that so many people understand it. So
Hmm.
even if you look at Scary Movie, there really is Halloween stuff in there and Friday the 13th, because it's the typical stuff of the car not starting, or how do I escape from here? The girl trying to crawl through the doggy door, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
And while she's stuck, then I turn on the garage door, and cut her body in half or whatever. So it's like um, there's some of that stuff that's wasn't in Scream, but everyone understands the slow walking killer. Yeah, I
Yeah.
do a thing with the slow walking killer where she's running, Carmen Electra's running, and I'm catching up to her, and then it reveals she's on a treadmill. You know what I mean? So like, I just watched Halloween Kills, and they do that exact same thing. They don't do the treadmill, but there's a woman running through the
And
woods.
Michael
And
Myers, nice slow pace.
nice slow pace. It's like the rabbit in the hare or whatever. Like he got to the same place as her, well rested, and he was listening for her heavy breathing. 'Cause she ran and he walked. And he's quiet, listening around. So, did
Yeah,
you happen to see that one? Did you see the Halloween Kills yet?
I have. I saw it on opening night.
I I felt like they tried to bite off way too much with all the characters and the tying. It's pretty.
You and I are in an agreement. I was not really satisfied with it.
Yeah, yeah,
It was all over the place. It was fragmented.
right.
And what happened was, we sort of came to expect, with, starting with Halloween 5 and on, that the level of the movies have gone down. And then in 2018, they give us this amazing Halloween movie.
Right.
and it just boosted enthusiasm for everybody. And everybody was waiting for Halloween Kills to come out, and it's mixed. I mean, nobody. I haven't spoken to anybody who. I mean, not really. I mean, there are also a few people on the internet that just, oh my god, we loved it. But 90% of the people I've spoken to were like, eh, I'm neither here nor there. I neither hated it nor loved it. For
Right.
me, I was disappointed.
Yeah. I was disappointed in the fact that, to me, the biggest disappointment was the filmmakers involved are veteran filmmakers, so they understand how to craft a good story. They understand how to shoot a good movie. The producers are the top producers in the horror business. So for them to put up, I'm not going to call it diarrhea, but it was just sort of like a macaroni collage of
Mm-hmm.
too much stuff. There was just too
Yep.
many characters going on, too many like flashbacks to, you know who this person is and this person, this person. Remember this versus like
Yeah.
it left off the original, like the 18 one left off with him looking up with that flame, and it's the first time you ever saw like this little lost puppy dog
Yeah.
of Michael Myers. You know, this lifeless face all of a sudden became sad looking up, and it was like, I want to see what is his connection to, the Jamie Lee Curtis character. You know what I'm saying? And
Exactly.
she had very little to do. I thought she was in a Dannon having
Oh yeah. She didn't need to be in this movie.
yeah, it looked like they just cut in like clips of her like having like irritable bowel syndrome from eating Dan yogurt commercials. You know what I mean? Because she was like, oh, like holding her stomach the whole time. I was just, you could put fart sounds in probably, and
And
cause,
that whole movie, they were trying to build up to the finale where supposedly we're going to find out what makes Michael tick. And all the information they gave us is that he just, when he was a kid, before he killed his sister, just looked out the window. That's all the information they gave us.
yeah,
And it was supposed to be, this is the penultimate movie to what is supposedly going to be the finale, and
right.
they didn't just give us anything besides him looking out the window. Now let me ask you this. Now John Carpenter had a much more hands-on role in 2018 than he did in this one. You think that played a big factor?
Yeah, probably. He probably kept it. Look, in 2018, they really tried to do I felt like they mimicked the first one. Like very simple,
Yeah.
a simple premise of Michael Myers, except for him. Once you got past him escaping, then it was basically, I'm tracking this girl down, and then it went to that safe house
Yeah.
where the stakes were upped, and I thought it would then continue that in some way. Like where, you know, how's he? I didn't mind say, remember the firemen when when he was fighting the firemen,
Mm-hmm.
which you never really saw Michael Myers take on. He was in a Jackie Chan martial arts style of
No.
kicking, but I didn't mind that. That was like, at least like, okay, great. And I love the little stuff where the woman was shooting and he kicked the door and the gun shot her in the head. I was actually expecting him at the top of the stairs to pick the gun up in his house. Remember when the guy had the
Yeah.
gun, and I was expecting him to pick the gun up and shoot her at the bottom of the stairs, going, I've never seen Michael Myers pick a gun up and
No.
just shoot someone, which would have been hilarious that he just finally did it. Like,
Yeah.
boom, I can shoot you. I just don't like doing it.
Exactly, exactly. Thinking of it, that would have been great. That would have been something different. And you're right about the characters. Bringing back Tommy Doyle, and this is nothing on Anthony Michael Hall. Anthony Michael Hall is a good actor, but just bringing back the character of Tommy Doyle, why? I mean, it
Right,
served no purpose. Lindsay, Nurse
right.
Crane. I don't know. It was just like you said, too many characters, too much stuff going on here and there. And then they put in that social commentary in the hospital where you
Yeah,
had,
yeah,
yeah,
right,
where the patient who was innocent, who jumped off
right.
the edge, was like
Yeah,
sort of a representation of America today,
right.
divided, and he
Yeah.
fell off the cliff.
Well,
Yeah,
it showed the mob mentality where they were like, we're killing the evil, but they became the mob. They became the evil mob. It's the Frankenstein thing. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like the whole thing. You're the monster, but the town is the monster against Frankenstein. All of a sudden, they become the monster, the mob. Group think, and
yeah,
literally killed an innocent guy. You know what I mean?
exactly.
So
and you felt so bad for him because he was just scared. He went to the hospital to turn himself in, find some help, and at the
Right.
end, he was so scared they literally drove him off the cliff.
Right.
Now, now going back to scary movie, did you talk to like David Arquette, who played your counterpart in Scream, or any of the other actors from any of the movies?
Nope. No, I didn't. In fact, it was years before I met David Arquette. Even though when I moved to LA, I actually lived next door to his family's home, where his mom lived and his sister Alexa lived, and so I would see him before I even did. I mean, this was like for 5, 6 years before I got cast in Scary Movie. I would see David and stuff like that. I never said hi to him or anything, and because you respect people's privacy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
and family, so it's not like I'm like, what's up? So. Um, but when I did meet him, it was a movie. He directed a movie called Tripper. I don't know if you know that movie. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good little slasher
I
film.
haven't seen it, but I have heard of it.
It's pretty good, man. Paul Rubens is great in it. The Pee Wee Herman, Mr. Pee Wee Herman, and so I was invited to the premiere red carpet, and David was greeting everybody on the red carpet in this kind of white suit splattered in blood. It was his writing and directing debut, and as I walk up to shake his hand, and I'll see if I find the camera, but there it is. I'm like, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm before I even got my name out, I go, "I'm," and he goes, "I know who you are. I know who you are." And he was just kind of gripping my hand. I'm like, "Uh huh, I know who you are." And it was like, I think he took the Doopy performance, like he kind of did take it as a jab at him when it
No,
wasn't, because
no, yeah.
if he would understand, if he saw the two short films that I played at Chip, all I did was literally play the character I was already doing. They said this would be great for a Doopy, but like it was a spoof of Dewey, but my character, I wasn't like, how am I gonna rip him? You know what I mean?
No,
Like I
no,
wasn't
no,
trying to.
yeah. I didn't see that at all. Now, there's a new Scream movie coming out, and I
Yeah,
believe David directed this new one, the new Scream movie. What are your expectations for that?
I don't have any. I just hope it's not the typical reboot and it's the kids. They're parents now, and now it's kids. I think that would be, we've seen that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like the older generation. In fact, it's similar to like what we just saw in Halloween, where Jamie Lee
Mm-hmm.
Curtis' grandmother and Judy Greer's the mom, and the main girl is in high school or whatever. And it's sort of like that one. That one makes more sense because the Michael Myers thing is a bloodline. There's something about her family that's my thing, is like, what's the relationship there with her family. But in Scream was never that. There's not a bloodline in Scream. You
So
know what I
you
mean?
wanted to be brought back to the main characters like Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, David Arquette, and
Right,
not have it be their kids and
right.
whatnot.
But we know the reasoning is because movies, and these slasher movies are teen movies. They're date night movies. They're
Yeah.
they're ghost jumps and like scares and stuff to get the girl to go, or the guy to go like that and get closer. Or, you know what I mean? Whatever it is, it's like it's kind of like a roller coaster ride. You go on a roller coaster to have a little thrill, and you go in these things to get a little thrill. And it's hard to thrill a 52-year-old. You know what I'm saying? Watching another 52-year-old like run around, and I don't know if we want to see, half naked 52-year-olds versus 18-year-olds. So it's hard to say, but I get it. That's the youth market is where the market is
Oh
to
yeah,
sell
it's always
product.
been like that. It's always been
Right.
like that. Now, I'm noticing a trend of the slasher movies slowly starting, coming to come, slowly coming back. Of course, in the '80s, it was all the rage with the Jason Voorhees, the Michael Myers, the Freddy Kruegers, into the '90s, and then slasher movies sort of really disappeared.
Right.
Now, the big horror attraction right now and the big, draw are supernatural paranormal movies. That's what
Right.
scares people. In fact, that's the last subgenre of horror that actually still scares me because I kind of believe in it.
Right.
What are your feelings about?
Like saying, not to stop you, but it's the one plausible,
Yeah,
because it's an unknown. And I went on a ghost hunt in a haunted hotel that was like 300 years or 250 years old and had a big history. And um, at this last convention I just did, it was a Lexington Scarefest. I was near a panel, and it was a panel of ghost hunters or demonologists and stuff, and they started talking about the possessions and what happens. And when I feel like I had a brief possession of a demon, that I went into a catatonic state where I couldn't
Wow.
move, and half my face drooped like a sort of like partial paralysis and stuff. And all I could move was my eyes. And it wasn't until this like somebody else on the crew figured out, wait, he's blinking. Are you blinking Morse code? And I started blinking. I didn't know Morse code, but I was trying to signal them that I am there, but I couldn't move my body at all.
Wow.
And I thought I was only out for like a minute. They rolled tape on everything, and it wasn't until we got back to the hotel, and I was out of it the rest of the night. Like I was very like I had a concussion type of thing,
Yeah.
like just knocked out. And I said, man, that was a crazy. How long was it out? Like a minute, 2 minutes? And they go, no, you were catatonic for 15 minutes. We have the tape.
Shit.
And I didn't know that. I thought it was only. And that's when I got pissed off at them. I was back at the hotel. I'm like, what? And I started like I was ready to try to punch people, because I was like, you had me like that for 15 minutes and you didn't call 911. What if it was like a diabetic seizure?
Or you're having a stroke or something.
That's what I'm saying. I was like, what? I thought it was just out a minute. And by the time you guys got your senses, we were like, oh, he's back. We were gonna call 911, but then I realized, and the reason they didn't want to call 911 is because I don't think they had permits to go inside this closed hotel and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like
their option was to let you die if you were having a medical emergency.
Yeah, I don't know if that's any better, right? Because it's sort of like, if you don't have insurance and you don't have a permit, well, it could be worse if I die.
Exactly. But yeah, paranormal, supernatural movies. I read a study a couple of years ago. Over 60% of the world's population believes that there is something after death. Okay, now the beliefs vary, but for me, I've never experienced anything paranormal, but I'm a 100% believer. I don't want to experience it to believe it. I know something exists after death, and the movie in Hollywood has just, taken off. Yeah, they do severe exaggerations with the
Right.
dramatizations, but at the end of the day, when we go to the movies, we want to be entertained and we want to be scared, hence all the dramatizations. Now, going back to the slasher flicks, are you also noticing a slight uptick in slasher flicks over the last several years?
Well, definitely on the independent circuit, there's a lot more slasher flicks, and I feel like they've all also trying to sort of go, we're in the 80s, you know what I mean, or we're in the 90s. So it's sort of these sort of period piece slasher flicks, only because it on a lower budget, it makes it at least look like there's some sort of like take or production value to it.
Yeah.
Like that Massacre Academy takes place in the 80s, and so does the one that's playing at New Jersey HorrorCon. It's called Bloody Summer Camp. It's like an 80s summer camp,
Yeah.
blood slasher type of thing. I think I'm good with that because it's simple stuff. And for a while they went with the zombies. The zombies were the big thing.
Oh yeah.
And you think that zombies could be like, oh, that's sort of cheap, but you need zombies, you need bodies. So that and there's a lot of makeup to do on that. And we did a spoof. I did a spoof of The Walking Dead called The Walking Deceased.
Yeah.
And we shot it in San Antonio, Texas. This was in 2015. It was like it was like 2 seasons of The Walking Dead were on already. So it didn't spoof all the characters. It was really the main core of that first season.
Mm-hmm.
And I played the sheriff, and I kept looking for my son, Coral. And it was funny. I had a ball, but we didn't have a lot of money. And I remember looking at the reviews going like, oh, it could have been funnier. They could have did so much more. And I was like, I know we couldn't have done more because more costs more money.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? You want bigger sight gags. If you want zombies coming crashing through a wall, well, that costs money, But with that one, there was a lot of those zombie walks and zombie groups, and we went on Facebook and just said, show up at the mall, already made up, so they only had to make 5 or 6 hero zombies, and the rest were just people that hey, I made myself up as a zombie, and then that's kind of how we had a horde of 50 or 60 was people just showed up to be in the movie already made up.
That's a great way to bring in zombies. Say, come in all dressed up and be a part of our movie.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty brilliant. And you got to say with zombies, of course Romero is the granddaddy of all zombies. Uh,
Absolutely.
and then that also went into a lull, and it was The Walking Dead back in 2010 that really revitalized the zombie genre,
Right, right.
and everybody started to try to cash in on the same success. Films. I mean, there's a brand new television show that's actually pretty good, called Day of the Dead. That it's only 2 episodes in. It's a
Oh,
it's a very light. It's on the Sci-Fi Channel, and
okay.
It's not like the Day of the Romero's Day of the Dead. It's very light-hearted, comedy-like zombie film where it goes against the typical zombie tropes where if a hand gets severed, the hand is going to move on its own. So they take a very lighthearted approach, and so far it's working. But zombies, like I said, it's just another example. Before The Walking Dead came onto the scene, there were it's not like zombie fans disappeared. They wanted the zombie stuff, but
Right.
nothing of quality was coming out until The Walking Dead came out.
Yeah. And that's a good point. Like I I did a film called The Special, changing the subject, but it is genre. I'm just jumping to different genres. Um, it was a monster movie. It was like a Cronenberg fly kind of a
Mm-hmm.
creature feature movie of a guy that is been infected and he's transforming. So
Yep.
at the end of the movie, he's sort of grotesque and he's a monster. And again, it's a different genre. So it's not like any of these things are like, oh, I don't want to watch that anymore. I remember, um, and this is in the comedy. It was a Will Ferrell basketball movie. I forget what it was called, but when I was working with the studios, and I forget what we were trying to get off the ground, and his basketball film didn't do very well,
Mm-hmm.
and they said, "Oh, sports comedies aren't playing right now," and I was like, "Well, everything plays, but bad sports comedy might not be popular, but that doesn't mean a good sports comedy wouldn't do well." You know what I'm saying? It's like
Exactly.
so a good take on a slasher movie is a good movie. You know what I mean? A
Mm-hmm.
bad take on a slasher movie is a bad movie. So
Yeah.
a bad zombie movie is a bad zombie movie. So
It all comes down to the individual project. If you have a good script and if you have the right people in place, you can
right.
take anything and it's gonna be good. Now, going just touching back on Scary Movie again, in regards to your career, playing the character of Doofy, uh, did it give your career a boost right after that came out?
Yeah.
Looking back, do you have any regrets to taking on that role? Do you think it kind of pigeonholed you into a certain type of character? What are your thoughts looking back on that film right now?
Oh no, it was that was definitely key to whatever career I had. You know what I mean? So I'm very thankful. In fact, I coached my son's little league game. So this was 21 years ago, right now. This film. And I was at the batting cages today with my son, and I was reserving another cage for tomorrow for the whole team. And the guy Zach behind the countertop, he's like, "I finally figured out who you are. I finally recognized you." And I was like, "Oh, what's that?" And he goes, "You're in one of my favorite movies." And I was waiting to see what that was because I get different things. I got Devil's Rejects just yesterday from
And
somebody else.
we're going to get to that next. Yeah.
This one, I was ready for him to say something else, and he said "Scary Movie," which is probably the bigger of it all. And he knew me as Doofy. Well, now what's funny is I've been going to this batting cage with my baseball teams for like 5, 6 years, so it took a while for this guy to figure me out, and I think it was because of I'm paying with credit card, so he knows my name,
Yeah.
and so I think whispers went like, "Oh, I," because I just went to the For the Love of Horror in England and I was gone for 10 days. So I think one of the other coaches was using my membership for the team and said, "Oh, he's over doing a autograph signing in England." And that's when they were like, "What do you mean? What does he do?" So
Exactly.
I don't really like to, you know, the good thing about my career is I have a level of anonymity, because all these people, the characters I play or the films I've been in, I don't always look like myself.
Exactly.
And
Like Doofy. I'm looking at you now and I don't see, well,
yeah,
I don't see Doofy. I see
right.
Dave Sheridan.
Well, and what's funny is when someone does recognize me very quickly, like a host at a restaurant seating us, she's like, I remember this happens every now and then. Like, you look so familiar. Did you play Doofy in Scary Movie? Right? Or it happens in the elevator sometimes. And I'm just like, they either have a very good eye, or was I like looking at the elevator button going, "It's going to it good, yeah, my finger," I'm like, was I standing there at the restaurant being like, "Yeah, what a table," what I'm saying? It's like I'm all over the place. I'm trying to move I'm hand holding this, so it's like sometimes I move it this way, that way.
It's,
Hopefully, it's not too jittery.
it's okay. We'll call this a found footage interview.
Exactly. Yeah. Um,
So,
but,
Devil's Rejects.
but go back to your question. Without a doubt, Scary Movie being like one of the top grossing comedies ever, and having the longevity that it's had, 20 years going on, 20 years strong, people are still watching it or discovering it. And the one thing about Doofy was that he became a meme. He
Mm-hmm.
became a GIF and a meme, and he became political. Like or this is me to my boss on Monday. You know what I mean? Me showing up to work on Monday, whatever it is. He's the new, like, hang in there, Friday's almost there. The kittens. It's like now Doofy is that. You know what I'm saying? And um,
How does that make you feel that the character that you played is still relevant and being used and popular today, all
that
these years later?
he's by it. I'm thankful and I take it. I do take it sort of, even though it's completely goofy. I do take it serious. A friend of mine, Felissa Rose, who's like one of my producing partners, we've done a lot of movies with.
She's a
Her
great person. Yeah.
her biggest film is
The Sleepaway Camp.
when she was 13 years old, and now she's 30. She's 33, I think. And so, but basically, the thing with Felissa is she's shown me how you need to be grateful for the fact that you're given that one role. You know what I mean? Not alone. I played 77 roles, and there's other characters that are very popular that I've played as well, but nothing like Doofy. And it's interesting. It was my first one out of the gate.
Yeah.
But a role makes the actor at the end of the day. And
Yeah.
since the fans like him so much, at first I was like, I didn't want to embrace doing Doofy at like the conventions and stuff, but now I understand how it touches people, and it makes people laugh and smile, and that's
Exactly.
what
Let me give you mentioned
class clown since preschool. I can't do anything else.
exactly. Yeah.
I wouldn't know how to do it.
And you mentioned Felissa Rose. I met her this past May at a convention, and this
Right.
was a small convention in North Carolina, but
Yep.
it had some pretty big people. Ross Marquand from The Walking Dead was there. A lot of big people. She was by far the most popular person there. She always had a line.
Yep.
She just attracts the people. Sleepaway Camp. She's very active in producing and behind the camera right now. And while she was signing autographs, this is after I met her, her manager was right there with her as well. And her manager's name is Sam, I believe.
Yep.
And we got to talking. And I asked, wow, Felissa, for being known from Sleepaway Camp, is really popular. And Sam filled me in. Felissa is always producing. She's been active in this industry well beyond Sleepaway Camp, doing horror and producing and whatnot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and Felissa is a different story. She's the most unique on the circuit. Trust me, I tour with her all the time. I was supposed to be at that one, and I had an opportunity to go to the camp. I don't know if you know the camp at all, because I know you're a Walking Dead fan.
Yeah.
The camp is in where around the sets of The Walking Dead, and they do tours. Yeah. And so, like Ross would be there one year. He wasn't there this year because he was at your thing that you were at, but Lou Temple would be there. The Cameron or whatever. Who's the kid? Cameron, who plays the main kid?
Chandler Riggs.
Chandler, yeah. Like they'll all be there, and they'll be a part of the tour to take people on, like, a bus tour and stuff like that. And it's a charity event called the camp, and it was the same weekend, and I was double booked. I didn't realize it, but because that weekend, it was North Carolina Fear Fest or North Carolina something.
Yeah, it was in Raleigh.
Yeah, yeah, and Carolina Fear Fest, I think it was called. But they played the Bloody Summer Camp at that
Hmm.
one too, but it was a shorter version. The one that's in New Jersey is going to be the director's cut, which has a little more stuff in it. So,
Nice. How I mean, how do you enjoy conventions? Do you get a big kick out of them? Do you enjoy meeting the fans, interacting with them?
yep,
You know, tell us how you personally experience each convention and how do you take it in?
it's great. It's a symbiotic relationship because um, I bet you the fans probably think that they're getting the most out of it, because it's like, oh, I got to meet Dave Sheridan, and he signed a thing and he took a photo and did Doofy. But first of all, and one of the reasons I was always doing comedy is because obviously I'm looking for some sort of, I wouldn't say admiration, but initial sort of like reaction.
Hmm.
When I went to Second City Theater, and did comedy at Second City in Chicago. And when you're doing comedy on stage, people are laughing, so you're doing it right
Yeah.
when you get the when. And then I went and did Steppenwolf too, which is like where John Malkovich and Gary Sinise and Gary Cole and stuff. And in that situation, when you're doing drama, you don't know. It's hard to read the audience. Are they buying into the play?
Hmm.
There's no litmus, marks of that beat work, that beat work. I would say though, when you do drama in a live theater thing, when it hits these moments, it's the opposite. You feel this energy suck from the stage as if everyone collectively is holding their breath,
Hmm.
and you kind of feel it pull away. You feel this, it's like everyone, and you
Yeah.
feel it like, wow, I nailed it, So you can do it, but the immediate gratification of the reaction of a young performer, it helps a young performer like learning how to ride a bike.
Hmm.
You're not riding a bike when you fall. It's like, oh, I didn't do it right. When you're able to stay on the bike, well, you're riding a bike. And that's kind of comedy really helps you understand how to control the beats and how to control the energy and timing. And it's the same as drama anyway.
Yeah.
All performing is the same, but to somebody, for me, it was easier to do. But it's the same thing when I go to these conventions. I when you're just in movies and TV shows, you don't know, am I connecting with people? Are people liking what I'm doing? But then when you go to do the festivals, people come up and tell you what they liked or what they didn't like, and how much they loved that thing, or how many times they watched Scary Movie or Ghost World or Sex Drive or whatever the film is. Like we were talking about Devil's Rejects and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And that's one aspect, and the other aspect is some people you really touch a lot. Some people are needed to be cheered up. They'll tell you a story of something that happened in their life but then I watched your movie the other night and it got me through that, or something like that. So there's great moments with fans in that regard. And they give you, like I said, market research. You kind of know in the horror department, like what's I asked them about other films is what I'm saying. Oh, what did you watch it? Like Halloween Kills. Like
Yeah.
I'll be at the Frightmare at the Falls, and I'm certainly going to bring up uh, films that are relevant right now
Hmm.
and hear what the fans are thinking about it. Because we know that Halloween is within the horror community between, between Friday the 13th and Halloween. Those are the top two. Like,
Exactly.
you don't say anything bad about Michael Myers. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what they thought of it, because eventually, even the most hardcore fans have to be able to say, I didn't like that one so much,
Yeah.
But on the and even the most hardcore fans usually say, I didn't like that, It's, so
Exactly. Now,
right,
I want to talk a little bit more about the Devil's Rejects. Okay, you
yeah,
got to work with Rob Zombie. I believe I've read that you've stated you'd prefer projects like the Devil's Rejects over Scary Movie because of a desire to do more original content. What
yeah.
exactly did you mean by that when you said that?
Well, I mean, just the fact that like Scary Movie was a spoof of something that already existed, and um, with Devil's Rejects, it was something coming out of Rob's head. It was a completely, he created the characters, he created the story, and also I think more original content is just sort of like from a filmmaker's point of view.
Yeah.
Like Rob was definitely the first auteur that I worked with who wrote it, directed it, pretty much edited it. I know there was a Glenn edited it, but Rob is sitting there saying, cut it here, move it there. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And Rob obviously, he's a musician. So like a John Carpenter, he's got a major hand into the score and the music of it all. So,
What were
um,
your feelings? When you got on the Devil's Reject set, was that the first time you ever met Rob?
no, I met him in my second interview. Like I did audition for that role. Then I
Hmm.
met him it wasn't an audition, but it was a sit down interview. And then we did a table read. So the day he called action on set, I probably met him probably 4 times because I think he had a barbecue in his backyard with everybody. Hold on, I'm gonna let my dog out.
That's
Um,
good.
which I'll tell you, the funny thing on that was uh, I never met Bill Moseley until the barbecue.
Wow.
And Bill, oh, I gotta let my other dog out. Every time one goes out, this other one, she's a cutie. Where is she? Right there. Yeah.
Aw.
But she's got to come out now. Now they're gonna fight. Yeah.
That is hysterical.
So, so Bill Moseley. He's
Yeah.
intense, especially in Devil's Rejects. It's I mean it's a shame they didn't films like that don't really get considered for nominations on things because Bill Moseley's role, his
Hmm.
performance definitely up there in terms of a performance. And so he shaved his head because that's a wig that he's wearing, the long hair.
Hmm.
So in order to make it easier to like, hey, on and off, he just had his head shaved so they could put the wig on. But that was his real beard. So you have to picture Bill Moseley with a shaved head, but a giant lumberjack beard, and it was gray. And he's wearing like cut off jeans, and he's in Rob's pool, and he's floating in Rob's pool all by himself. He really kept to himself. And I was like, well, who the hell's that? And he's like, oh, that's Bill Moseley. And I was like, okay, I've never met him, but he was already intense in a weird way. You know what I'm saying? But it wasn't a off-putting, scary way. It was
Yeah.
just kind of like, who's the crazy old guy with the beard and the psycho in the pool?
Yeah, he was
Like
like in character or something.
he was, but I think he just wanted. I think he was enjoying the pool.
Yeah.
It might have been like, whoa, he needs to be alone. He's in the character, but nobody else wanted to get in the pool. Really, it's a barbecue, and it was like, I didn't know there was going to be a pool. I just I don't have an extra pair of pants. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like so.
So, I got to say, from my personal standpoint, House of a Thousand Corpses, The Devil's Rejects are up there on some of the greatest horror movies made. Rob, completely original content. It was disturbing. It
Right.
was it was unique. It was rich. What did you think from a fan standpoint? Not actually being in the Devil's Rejects, but what were your feelings on those two movies? Watching them as a fan.
I like both of them. The only thing I would say is they really are so different,
Mm-hmm.
and the hardest thing for me on A House of a Thousand Corpses, I know that Rob felt like he lost a certain amount of control and was like, I didn't get to complete my vision, which is really why he set off to do The Devil's Rejects as a kind of like such a jar. There is a difference in tone
Yeah.
in those things. And I never even asked him, is the tone of The Devil's Rejects what you wanted the tone of A Thousand Corpses to be? Because that wouldn't fit at all. Because what
Mm-hmm.
I liked about A Thousand Corpses is House of a Thousand Corpses, it kind of had that old school fun house.
Yeah.
You know, it felt it was exaggerated in parts. You know what I'm saying? And that kind of, how those fun houses have those mirrors that like
Yeah.
bend and your body, and that's what it felt like to me. He took me on that ride of these teens going on, on this road trip and stepping into shit, which which was like, that kind of Texas Chainsaw Massacre kind of,
Exactly, the Sawyer
uh,
family.
in the House of Wax kind of situation, so I thought it was great though. I loved both of them. Um, I think in both films he really did a great job of taking comedic actors, like Chris Hardwick's in that one,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
in this one, and Coggs, what is it? Walton Coggs, is that his name? I forget the other guy that plays the deputy.
Yeah, I know. I'm drawing a blank as well.
Yeah, he really is a hilarious actor though. You know what I'm saying? Like his timing is he's really got some great comedy chops. So that's one thing that I think um, the only other person that does it maybe is Quentin Tarantino of
Mm-hmm.
putting an eclectic cast together of like here's some comedy people and here's straight up iconic drama people, and with Rob he put like straight up iconic horror people,
Yeah.
uh, like Sid and Mosley and Michael Berryman, and then but then he put people like Brian Posehn and myself and Priscilla Barnes,
Mm-hmm.
and Three's Company, Leslie Easterbrook from Police Academy. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like, but melded them together. Let us have a little, especially my role as the deputy. I was able to be a little goofy, a little light levity to the whole thing. And I'm going to get to that in a minute about why levity and comedy have to be you need it in horror. And I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
tell you why in a second. But ultimately, he's able to mix those two really well and pull out and trust the comedic actors that I know you're a good dramatic actor. You know what I mean? So I'm going to give you an opportunity. So that was pretty cool. And the one thing is, people always say like, "Oh, you're a comedian by trade, but I do all these horror movies." And I was going to say, like, after studying horror movies and what they need is you do need that comedic levity that lets air out, lets the tension, and helps you hit the reset button on something really gory and horrific.
I
It's
agree.
it's
Yeah.
a quick way for the audience to reset so that they're ready for the next one. Because if you just keep it dramatic the whole time, it doesn't let you lull back into a sense of a little more relaxation to then get the ghost jumps and stuff like that, the jump scares.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah. It's a great balance, and Rob does it really well. I mean, the really great filmmakers know how to balance that comedic levity you're talking about, along with the
right.
serious jumps and the scares and the gore and whatnot. Dave, we are out of time. This has been a fascinating conversation. Man, you
Thank
are
you.
just a wealth of knowledge, and thank you so much for coming on our show and sharing with us. I look forward to meeting you in a couple of weeks in Atlantic
Yep.
City. Uh,
Great.
Check out your movie as well. Any final thoughts you want to share?
If anybody out there is watching this Dead Talk Live and you see myself at a convention, come up and say hi and talk to me about the podcast and stuff like that, because I'd like to hear from fans and hopefully you and I can do something maybe live
While we're
at
there.
with Felissa. We're going to be hosting the film festival. Her and I.
Oh,
So
cool.
maybe we can get a little interview with her. She's awesome. Has she been on the show yet?
She has not been on the show yet. No, no, we're
She
working
needs
on
to.
it.
She needs to be. Yeah, for sure.
She's
And
always busy. Like her manager says, she's always out producing something or acting. She's a very, very busy woman.
she is. She is. That's why my first film with her was Victor Crowley. That's where I
Ah,
met her. And we've done 28 movies since. And
wow.
we just got done one up in Connecticut called Dark Circles that she produced. And most of those movies she's produced.
Yeah.
So,
She's not only, I mean, she's an extremely intelligent person. And she knows exactly when it comes to producing. I mean, she
right,
knows what she's doing.
she does. She absolutely is. She's a veteran of the business. She's smart because she learned while paying attention. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
First being an actor, paying attention on set, learning the business, and then taking over the business,
it,
so to speak. So,
absolutely. You're
but I'll
100%
do a
correct.
New Jersey Horror Con Felissa will be there. I'll be there, and it'll be, hopefully I can see any fans come up and say hi.
Yeah, exactly, guys. The New Jersey Horror Con and Film Horror Convention and Film
Yep.
Festival is
Yep.
going on November 11th, 12th, 13th. Uh, that weekend in Atlantic City. It's going to be a blast. The guest list is huge. I mean,
Yeah.
we're talking there are going to be a lot of guests. Dave is going to be there. We're going to be covering. Felissa's going to be there. A lot of guests, a lot of great guests. So if you're in the Atlantic City, New Jersey area, please come on over and check it out. I want to thank Dave Sheridan for being our guest. Thank you to our audience for tuning in tonight. David, it's been a pleasure. Look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. On behalf of Dave and myself, stay safe and stay walking, everybody. Good night.
Night, man. Bye.